Hi, it's Kathy from Raven Vintage. Welcome back to my craft room. Come on in. I saved you a spot. Today is the day. We are starting with 100 ways to use scraps. And before we get into our first projects, I just noticed that we have a lot of extra people here. And I wanted to welcome you. And also, I thought this would be a good time just to reintroduce myself. My name is Kathy, and I live in Norfolk County, Ontario, Canada. I'm very close to Lake Erie, so I'm actually further south than some of you in the US. I live here with my dog Ruby. I don't know if you can see her out there on the couch, but once in a while you'll hear her or see her. And I am recently retired. A year ago, September, I retired and made this my full-time thing. I turned my hobby into a hobby hustle, and I absolutely love what I do. It never feels like work. And I primarily make digitals. I design printables for junk journal makers. I make journals, and I started doing YouTube videos and hanging out with you guys. So let me tell you something that you will never see me do. I'm going to do it now, but you will not see me do this again. For the rest of the series, I hardly ever do it. So those of you that have been here, you know this. I never ask anybody to subscribe or like my videos. I figure if you want to be here, you'll be here. And if you don't, you won't. So I just leave that up to you. I don't ask. I know it would be good for me to ask because I know it would help the algorithm and help me pop up more across your screen for suggested videos. But like I said, if you want to be here, you will. So let me tell you, if you decide you want to subscribe, let me tell you who you're hanging out with. First of all, let's look at the age. I'm going to pop this up on my screen. This is the age bracket, 45 to over 65. That's the bulk of people we're hanging out with here. Mostly ladies. And like I'm 56, so I'm right smack dab in the middle of this little age group here. So that is who we're hanging out with. So if that interests you, and I think we seem to get along really well because we're all kind of like-minded, and I've noticed more and more that people are starting to chat to each other in the comments. One thing you'll learn about me is I try to answer every single comment, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. I try to respond to every single one. And I see that folks are starting to get tips from each other and chat in the comments. Well, this is who you're chatting with. So this is who you're crafting along with, are mostly ladies, like I said, about my age. So if that gives you an idea of what you're getting yourself into, should you decide. The other thing I find really interesting is the countries, of course. The highest viewership comes from the United States at like 55% of my viewers. And that just stands to reason with the number of people there compared to Canada. It's only 5.5% from Canada. We're just such a small country in comparison. And I just think junk journaling is much more popular in the US, honestly. It's picking up steam here in Canada, but I think that it's just been more popular from a social media aspect, I guess. And I think people have been making junk journals in Canada for a very long time. I just don't think it's been as, what's the word? Public, I guess, is the word. But look at the countries: Germany, Israel, Norway, Argentina, Denmark, Japan, everything but, well, China's not on here, obviously, because China's not allowed to watch YouTube. You'll have to tell me, are there other countries that are not allowed to watch YouTube? I don't know. I know China's not. So if I'm just consider myself lucky that so far in Canada, we can still watch YouTube and I can still be on here with you. And yeah, that's where everybody's from, all over the place. All over the place. So when there is a translation required, I do my best to get things translated and still answer you. And as far as captions, sometimes it takes YouTube a little while to catch up with the translations, so in your language. So I have quite a few languages selected there, so that the captions are translated in your language. I also learned that most of you are watching from your television. So when I'm expecting some feedback when I ask certain questions, now I understand why sometimes I don't get it. It's because you're watching from your TV, 38% of you. And then the lowest one is computer, which I am. I'm in that bracket. I watch YouTube from my computer. So you learn something new every day. Anyways, enough about the analytics. So that's me in a nutshell. Subscribe if you want. Don't if you don't want to. It's okay. But if you do, that's who we are and who you're hanging out with here on this channel. And we do have a lot of fun. We get into some really good discussions. Like topics just seem to flow easily into what we're doing. Like today, you'll see me talk the topic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3 projects with you, and then I'm going to mass make a few, make some extras for my stash box. And while I'm doing that, I get into a topic of the quiet or being a quiet person. And so if that's you, if you're a quiet person, typically, if that's your personality, you might be interested in sticking around for that. If not, the last 7 minutes of the video or so is just the mask making and the chatter. And then, yeah, that's it for today. So let's see. If you ordered one of these journals and you don't have it yet, you can make your pockets today and just set them aside and add them to your journal after. Note that the pages are going to be about 5 inches wide. Okay, so that will be your that's the measurement you should use if you're, I'll talk about that more as I'm making. But you can use an altered book, you can use a notebook, you can even just use a shoebox and put the stuff that we make in the box. That's fine, you don't actually have to. But I just really wanted to make a book of ideas for us to gain inspiration from in the future. So this is the journal I'm going to be working with. And I should say, as far as the scraps organization, because I mentioned in the intro video, I really want to elevate our scraps to something to give them a little bit more attention. And I am going to sprinkle that throughout the series. Won't be in every single video, but we will attack why we hang on to scraps, why they're so important to us. We're going to really talk about scraps throughout the whole thing, obviously. But as far as organization, like I said, we'll tackle more of that. I do have a couple videos that I did in the past, and I'll try to link them up here, or link the first one, part 1. There's part 3, a 3-part series, I think. I did quite a while ago about how I figure out the size categories to keep my scraps. You might be interested in watching that. I'll link it below as well in the description. All right, well, are you guys ready? You guys have been so excited. I asked, if you have any questions, give me the week to review those, and nobody had any questions. Everyone's just so excited to be here and get started. So the only one comment I had really was Lena from Norway. And she said, whenever you're mentioning a collaboration or a project, she said, can you please mention the YouTube channel, like who hosted that? So the only one I think of that I mentioned, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, in that last video was the 100 days of envelopes. That was mine. That was me. I hosted that. So there is a playlist in my playlist. There is a separate playlist just for the 100 days of envelopes. That's where I met most of you. And now we have all these new people. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And like I said, subscribe if you want, and you won't hear me ask that again. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so starting off with our very first project, it is a simple square pocket. Now, when I say a simple square pocket, I don't mean the exact right-angled square. I just simply mean a squared off pocket. It could be a square, a rectangle, but that basic shape, for lack of a better term. If you want it to be completely square, you can. I'm going to make some square pockets and make multiples of them because that's what we're going to do. We're going to mass make some of this stuff. So my journal's 5.5 wide, which means my papers are roughly 5.5, maybe a little bit more narrow because of the, they've been sewn in. So they do lose a little bit of width, but let me find a ruler. Here's one. So this is my inside cover where I've glued my checklist, and I have some lace here just to cover up that tape. I'll show you. If you got one of these, this craft kind of bookbinding tape that I used, I just wanted to cover that up. So I glued my list inside to the front cover, my checklist, and then I added a little bit of just dollar store cloth ribbon there. So this one in particular is 5 inches. So let's just add a pocket right at the beginning that's going to be 5 inches. Okay, so when you're making a square pocket, of course, we can just do a simple square and glue down the edges. However, on 3 sides, sometimes we like to have the sides and the bottom with a fold just to give that pocket a little more room. So if you know what you're going to be putting in that pocket, you can make that decision. Whether you want it to be a flat to the page pocket or a gusseted pocket that lifts away from the page to have extra room. I've gotten away from gusseting or doing the folded edges just simply because I find it's a little bit too loose and things tend to fall out. But we'll do one just for the sake of doing one. Okay, let's see here. Then I would add a 1/4 inch on either side. So a 1/4 inch times 2 is a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to make this 5.5 wide. Now I want this to also be the center if I can. Mark there. Should be somewhat centered. Okay. And then it's pretty tall, but I do want to gusset the bottom. So let's maybe just trim this off a little bit, and then we'll gusset the bottom. Okay. Did I cut that right? Okay, so yes, it's a little bit too wide, but if I gusset the sides, I can certainly fit it on my page. So I'm going to score a 1/4 there and a 1/4 on that side. And then at the bottom, let's do a 1/4 inch. This feels so backwards to me. I'll go this way. So 1/4 inch here, like that. Okay, so you can see where I have used a scoring tool. You can just fold it also. And then you want to get rid of your corners because they're bulky. So you can trim this right off exactly, or you can go from this point to that point. Either way is going to work just fine, I think. Like that. So that when we fold these, so you've got a little bit of a lift or a gusset. When I think of gusset, I think of a V-fold with like a gusseted, like a craft bag. So this, when I say gusseted side, I don't know if that's technically the right term for this. Okay, so here's where, because we trimmed that thing off, that can tuck inside like that, and then you get a nice corner like that, or like this. Either way, and glue that down. And then we also like to have a little thumb notch in our pockets, don't we? Simple, simple Simon. Like that. Okay, and then we'll do some inking and some gluing, and number 1 project is done. We'll get through all 3, and then depending on what time we have, we'll do some mass makes. But oops, this to me is junk journaling 101. One of the very first things you learn to do is to add pockets to your journals. That's one of the things that makes a junk journal, in my opinion. And how simple, it's just a thumb notched, and already instead of just a notebook, it instantly looks like a junk journal to me because we've added a pocket. This is one of those times I really appreciate having a precision needle on my, or nozzle I should say, on my glue for such things. And this couldn't be more boring, but it is not so much about wowing you as I really want to inspire you to use up your scraps. So just even the humble pocket, when we see all those end cuts in our our scraps, it wouldn't hurt to have a bunch of them pre-cut ready to go, because that is going to be so nice to have them on the ready to go into our journals. And then what if one day you happen to be watching a video about someone that's adding some sort of a stamping or embellishment or something to pockets? You think, oh, I have a bunch of pockets, I'm going to grab them, pull them out of my stash box, and then I'm going to practice or try a bunch. And you know you've done it on scraps, so if it turns out not great and you want to dispose of it, then no harm, no foul, right? And then you haven't done anything to your journal that you didn't want to do. Okay, so we were going to number our pages. So this is going to be page 1, and I will go through and do this maybe this evening, 2, 3, like this. And this is going to be project number 1. And this is just the simple square pocket. So yes, I'm going to be writing on mine. You don't have to do this, but it's my book of ideas. Like I said, it's not a journal I'm going to sell or write in. It's a book of ideas. So simple square pocket, just as a reminder. You wouldn't believe on those days when you are stuck, how something to have a book of ideas to flip through, how helpful that is. Okay, so number 1 done. Now, like I said, I would often just do, that's a nice deep pocket. It's going to hold a lot. This one is gusseted a bit, so there is a little bit of room, but it's, you know, a fabulous little pocket. Number 2 is a side loading pocket. So you could take something, we'll do that on page 2. Now, when does a pocket become a pocket or a tuck? Let's not get hung up on that. Who cares? We're calling this one a side loading pocket because we want to. I'm going to go the same direction. I think I'm going to cut it off where this one was. But this time I'm not going to gusset it. But I do want it to face sideways this time. How wide is it? It's already 5.5, which is a little too wide. But I think I want to keep some of this design. Or do I want it this way for a side load, or this way? Let's do it this way. Let's go 5 inches wide. So that's 2.5 center right there. Get rid of that. 5 wide. Good. And then I want to do a side loading pocket here, or do I want to turn it this way? I could turn it this way. It's kind of asking me to, isn't it, with this curve? But yes, we'll do a side loading pocket that way. So you see that curve in the design? I'm just going to jump right in there. Perfect. That just worked out. I wasn't planning that. Now, a side loading pocket. Now, this is one I wouldn't want to gusset the edges because I wouldn't want it loose, because whatever I'm tucking in the side, I don't want it falling out the edge of the journal. You could turn it this way and have a side loading, but it is difficult to sometimes get things slid into the pocket when the opening is facing the inside, unless there's enough room. But in this case, we're just going to simply turn it this way. First side loading pocket. Easy peasy, right? So if you hold the side you don't want glued, that's a reminder. So I'm going to glue the 3 sides this way. Traffic is better today. It's a little more quiet. Yesterday was Family Day in Ontario, and so a lot of people had the day off, and I think a lot of people didn't have the day off, so I think they were running errands and doing things, and there's just a lot more traffic than usual. So today feels a little bit quieter. However, I noticed with the temperatures being above 0, of course, the snow is melting, which means the snow is sliding off the roof. I have a steel roof, so the snow is sliding off the roof of the house. I can hear it crash outside once in a while. But that blanket of snow that was on top of the roof was kind of acting like an insulator, or what do you call it? Like as if you had headphones on your house, earphones, earmuffs, whatever. It kind of was making things a lot quieter inside the house. So you're kind of tucked all around with this blanket of snow. It's a couple feet high out there around the house in some places. And then the snow on the roof. And it just kind of feels like a great big snow hug. And the house was pretty quiet. Except yesterday the traffic was crazy. And I'm, on a busy enough road. But I do like the quiet. Now there's a fair amount of traffic because it's daytime. And of course I have to film during the day to get the daylight. So I just can't win. So I apologize when you can hear traffic. Maybe someday I'll move to a quieter location. Okay, so this is number 2, which is a side loading pocket. Okay, now remember I said I was going to check them off in my book and write the page number beside them. I'm not going to write the page number beside it if it's the same page. So number 1 is on page 1. Number 2 is on page 2. But later on, like I said, in the intro video, if I do a gratitude card, which is number 84, and I tuck it into this pocket here on page 1, I might write here beside the gratitude card number 1, so I know what page number it's on if I go look for that item, if that makes sense. So number 3 is a flip out pocket. So just very simple ideas. So again, I think it was Kimberly, is this journal going to be big enough? For all 100 projects? I hope so, because later on when we do the things that we tuck in, we're going to come back to this first 20 pages where we made the pockets and tuck the things inside there. So I think so. I think we'll be okay. Okay, a flip out pocket. My interpretation, again, there's many ways to do many things, but I'm going to call this my way. This is my interpretation of a flip out pocket. Okay, so I just have a simple piece of scrapbook paper, just an end cut. It measures, what are we at here? Looks like about 3.5 almost. And this is what, likely, is it a 12? No, it's a little shorter. It's like 11. Okay, so I've obviously cut this for a journal page. Just going to fold this in half. So this is going to become the pocket, but I want it to flip out from the page. So I need to score this. And yeah, this feels very upside down to me for some reason. How much of a thing do I want? Let's do a 1/2 inch. Okay, now I can glue this. I'm going to bend that to the back like that. That's going to be my hinge, so to speak. So let's get these burnished. That burnished. And I think I'll cut an angle on these a little bit so they don't stick out from underneath. So just a very simple little hinge like this. So now we need to make this into a pocket. So what I'm going to do is glue across the bottom, and then I'm going to glue these two hinge pieces together to form our pocket. So gluing the bottom of the pocket together, gluing the hinge together, and then glue the hinge down into here, and then we have a flip out pocket. Now I would like to, maybe should have done this before I glued it shut, but let me try to get a little bit of a center. So I like to lining up my two edges and just give myself a little pinch crease so I can find the center. And then I'm going to, will it fit? Just line my Sharpie line up here on my 2-inch hole punch. There we go. And a little ink. Along the thumb notch. So see, here's something I should have done, perhaps, is before I folded this in half, with fear of this splitting later on, I could have put a piece of washi on the inside up and down that crease just to reinforce that. But I didn't think of it. I'm thinking of it now. There we go. It's got a foil to it, so it's a little hard to ink, but there. And then we'll glue this, just the back of the hinge, down to the page. You're not gluing in here, you're just gluing the back of the hinge. I really feel silly just saying stuff, not to preach to the choir, but I do know there are some folks that are newbies, like complete newbies, and want to learn. And this is a really good way to learn some basics. So I'm sure you'll all be patient while I explain things. Because we want everybody to know how to make junk journals. It's a great thing. There. So you have a pocket. And it is a flip out pocket. That is number 3. Flip out pocket. Number 3. Okay, so let's take some of our other scraps here. It's number 3 is done. Very quickly added 3 styles of pockets to our book of ideas. Yeah, my daughter and I were chatting last night. We talk pretty much every single day. And we were chatting last night about just that, about quiet. And if for those of you that are new, we did Word of the Year. We talked a lot about that in fairly recent videos. Instead of doing New Year's resolutions, we talked about doing a Word of the Year. And my word is calm. And I've really been trying to practice that. Or you put that into practice into my everyday life, because I am kind of a reactionary type of person. I react quickly, and I'm trying to get that under control and pause and think before I speak. I'm a very quiet person, but I am also very highly in tune, sensitive type of person. So Okay, this is double-sided. You see me flipping this. I'm thinking this is double-sided, so I think I'll save that for another project that requires something double-sided. So let's just use these ones that are single-sided. These are end cuts, but this would be a great time to mass make a bunch of pockets. Now, I know that typically my journals are always this size, so a 5-inch is ideal. I think maybe I'll make a few of these to start. I was reading a quote that said, "Choose the quiet that lets love speak." And I thought that was such a beautiful quote. When we talk about quiet, it's like you can talk about quiet as a choice rather than an infliction or a, you know, an impairment or a character flaw. Being quiet, it's a choice. It's not so much the absence of sound so much as it's the absence of reaction, I guess. Like there's, you know, there's opinions and urgency and pressure to respond, and sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is just to not react immediately. Sometimes we just need to pause, and that is something that I am working on. That is a challenge for me. This looks crooked. Let's fix that. That's definitely a challenge for me. And something I want to work on. So that pause, when you take that pause, that's where it's kind of like that pause is room to, like bite your tongue or whatever, pause. There we go. You can measure with a pen, but this is just faster for me to do that little pinch mark, I find. You know, like when you're raising kids and you're like, you can be quick to anger. So you count to 10, that pause to calm yourself back down so that you can be logical and not react out of, you know, knee-jerk reactions. So it's like that quiet pause. That's where you can let love surface, basically kindness surface. Like everybody just needs to shush. Everybody just needs to be quiet. I love quiet. Being quiet, like I said, it's not necessarily a character flaw. I'm learning this about myself. Like the more time I spend alone, I'm really starting to get some clarity in life. Such a great time of life. I'm telling you, this is such a wonderful chapter. But being quiet doesn't mean you're weak. To me, it's more, I'm learning it's more about being steady. I don't need to win in the moment. It's something I need to keep reminding myself. Choosing quiet means that you can trust what is true, and it doesn't need volume. Truth doesn't need volume. I'm learning this. This is like I'm in my later 50s. I'm 56 and learning these things now. It's like, oh, where was this great advice when I was 30? You know? But I just, sometimes life gets in the way and you don't have time to quiet the mind and reflect and contemplate. So that's one of the reasons I love this slow crafting, is because if we're taking our time and enjoying, just letting the creativity flow, all of this just kind of weaves itself together. I've learned that when I respond from noise, I rarely feel good about it later. But when I respond from calm, it feels more aligned, I guess. But yes, my daughter and I were talking about friendships, and I was actually talking about you guys to my daughter. I was saying how wonderful this community is, how supportive it's been for me, because I don't have a lot of, because I'm more of a quiet person, and because I'm learning that that is not a character flaw, That is just who I am. I'm not a big social butterfly. I don't like doing all that. I really do not enjoy crowds. My cousins invite me to go to these concert nights and stuff. I'm like, very rarely would I ever say yes, because it's just not my thing. It's just not my thing. Yeah. No, I like quiet. I like being quiet. I like that I'm quiet. I'm good with it. I used to, like I said, I used to think of it as a character flaw, and now it's like, no, it's not. It's not at all a character flaw. So if you're quiet like me, I don't know. I just think that more good comes out of being quiet than, and I'm learning this because, like I said, I've not always been that way. This wisdom comes with age, right? Okay, so today we knocked off 3. A simple square pocket, a side loading pocket, and a flip out pocket. And then I have a few to put in my stash just from those, so those scraps that I had in front of me used up. Now they're intentional. This one I'm going to put back in the box, like I said, because it's double-sided, so I'll save that for another project another day. But we used up some scraps. So I used up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say, end cuts. Beautiful. Love it. Good job. Okay, so not really coming out gangbusters on day 1, but very simple, straightforward projects. That's a good start to our book of ideas. I love it. So I will be back with a shorter video tomorrow, and we will be doing an envelope pocket. So just a reminder, Saturdays will be the longer videos. We'll tackle about 3 or more projects. And then on the short videos throughout the other days, we'll concentrate on one project alone, just so that you have a good mix of short and long videos, which is also a good mix for me for recording. But yes, thank you so much for hanging out with me in my craft room, and I look forward to more of the 100 ways. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.